you can reserve it at the end of the section. And now I pass on to the next paper by Dr. Selva Kumar.
Yeah, good afternoon, respected Chairperson Professor Balaji, Professor Nagaswamy, Professor Jamgadkar, and Dr. Nandita Krishna, and other delegates and scholars. The title of my presentation is Trade and Navigation through the Inscriptions. Initially, I thought I would focus only on the medieval period, on a case study on inland navigation as evidenced by the inscriptions. When we talk of science and technology, it is not only science and technology which is important, but also its sociological implications, how science and technology impacted the society. So there is one area of history where we see great influence of science and technology, that is urbanization. When we think of urbanization, we can move back to its roots in the Neolithic phase. Generally, we tend to consider history and prehistory as separate just on the basis of literacy. I think we need to reconsider. In fact, we should take back the beginning of science and technology to the Neolithic phase, when humans first experimented with the nature and developed agriculture and animal domestication. In fact, we could call them as early biotechnological specialists. So therefore, we cannot confine to the beginning of history only with the introduction of script. In fact, script is one of the important development in science and technology, but all the more important, the experiments with the nature undertaken by the Neolithic communities, that actually led to the foundation of the urbanization. That's where I am calling agriculture and pastoral production as the prime movers in urbanization, for which foundation was laid in the Neolithic period. Even with in terms of medicine, we have possible beginning in the Mesolithic times. We have not explored it in detail. Whatever medicine that we are talking about, in fact, some of them are experimented right from the Neolithic, Mesolithic times. We also have a branch called, paleo medicine, and also the paleoethnobotany. If we work on the communities, tribal communities, they have preserved a lot of medicinal knowledge. So that could help us to reconstruct the beginning of medicine. In addition to that, the commercial interaction and industrial activities, they are some of the characteristic features of urbanization, because they contributed a lot. In the beginning, if it is agriculture and pastoralism, later on we have commercial and industrial activities laying the foundation for urbanization. So looking at the early Tamil Brahmi inscription, we get a lot of clues from them, in terms for early trade, and we get a lot of reference to other, technology also from the inscription. If you look at the distribution of Tamil inscription, they are concentrated mainly along the trade routes, and sometimes we find the trade and ideology working together. Invariably, these inscriptions are found associated with the caves where we have presence of Jain or other merchants. If you go to Deccan and other area, we have trade and ideology working together. We have a lot of Buddhist sites with Brahmi inscription. So there is an intimate connection between the commercial activities and the development of science and technology. That is one link we cannot ignore. In addition to that, we also have evidence of Tamil inscriptions distributed in outside the context. Coming to the features of urbanization, we have introduction of the script, brick architecture, long distance trade, industrial revolution, political formation, introduction of currency and coins, which is also important, which also can be considered as part of science and technology, production of text and poems, and also grammar work. We should not forget that even the composition of the text can also be considered as part of science and technology, if not necessarily the core features of science. I will quickly go through the slides because I have several slides highlighting points. These are the Pulimon Kombai inscriptions, and it also raises several questions. What is script and why writing became important, and why people started writing? So actually I think it becomes part of urbanization mainly for account keeping. And also it was a reliable means of communication, especially when urbanization took place. It was essential for proper business communication. They have to have writing, and also for various commercial activities, writing was very important. In addition to that, writing also has a social status. Probably these hero stones also adopted writing. We have only one hero stone, one or few hero stones from Pulimon Kombai and Thadapatti, where probably the writing was considered as a kind of prestige. We have references in the Sangam text to Edithudai Nadugal. So this kind of prestige aspects are also important for the presence of writing. Why these people were insistent their name has to be written. This is also very important. So writing, once it is invented, it disseminates among people, and it has a lot of social implications. This is another inscription, Velur Avan Padavan. This is from Pulimon Kombai, Kalped Thiyan Andavankal. And also, we see this centers emerging, places like Madurai, and where we find the concentration of a lot of Brahmi and industrial activities like Kiradi excavated recently. We have evidence of industrial activities at Adahankulam, Pattanam in Kerala, and also at Archimedu. So these centers were in fact, actually we can call them as centers of science and technology. If you take the case of Adahankulam or Archimedu, we have evidence of several technology like textile evidence, textile production, iron metallurgy, copper metallurgy, gold working. So one of the factors for the dissemination of science and technology could be this commercial activities and long distance trade. And this is one of the cave shelter near Tamil Nadu, near Madurai, where you get a lot of these inscriptions. This particular image is from Airavatham Mahadevan's book, where we see higher concentration of these scripts. So there is a factor behind the concentration of inscription. So what we get as urban centers, they were the centers of science and technology. We get a lot of evidence for the script. For example, if you take the case of Kodumanal, we have numerous inscriptions. Even if you take the case of sites like Bernike, we have a lot of inscriptions, and people from different areas coming together and living together and trading in commodities. So one of the factors for the arrival of script is this commercial activity, according to Y. Subbarayalu. I am not going into the dating of Brahmi or other script. These are all, I think it is far more important for us to understand the implication of science and technology and its overall social implication, rather than focusing only on the dating, how a technology or a new script spreads and how people are using it. Understanding that is more important. This is again an image from Madurai, where we have higher concentration of these inscriptions. Why the traders felt important that their name has to be written? Because probably it was a new kind of tradition and a new kind of fashion to display their name on a, generally people like to see their name appear on the newspaper, see their name to appear on a different media other than the self outside. Probably that kind of trend or fashion was one of the factors contributing to the writing of names on these people. You can see in many of the temples, people sometimes donate a fan or tube light and then write their entire name and block the light. So it in a way indicates how people were feeling. And these are some of the settlements along the Vaigai River Valley. And there are several other, merchant activities as reflected in the Tamil Brahmi inscription. We have reference to Vellarai, Nigamathur, Madurai, Ponkolvan, Uppu Vanigan. So several traders are recorded in the Brahmi inscription. They very well tell about the presence of commercial activities. That was one of the important factors. And also we have a lot of reference to these activities in the other texts, how goods were produced in Madurai. So we get a whole lot of understanding by looking at these Tamil literature as well as inscriptions, how trade flourished, how it contributed to the development of science and technology. Another important area of understanding is these maritime trade. Maritime trade and navigation, they were very important for the development of early urbanization in India. Often we try to understand Indian history or Tamil Nadu history within the narrow perspective. In fact, if you want to understand the cultural development in India, we need to look at the entire region as Afro-Eurasian history. We have a lot of evidence for Indian connection as well as Tamil connection right from the early time. So if we focus on Indian history by looking at only the evidence found in India, we will not be able to understand Indian history properly. That is why we need to cross beyond the boundaries to understand the cultural development. So I am also touching upon Harappan because the urbanization, one of the important factors is this script and also maritime interaction. We have a lot of evidence for Harappan interacting with West Asia. I will not go into the details. So here we get a lot of evidence for Harappan ships going into the West Asia, West Asian civilization, and the term Meluga is identified with the Harappan civilization. So we do not know how far it is accurate, but one interesting thing is these kind of maritime trade and navigation contributed to the development of science and technology, and even some scholars argue that the 360-day calendar that we use is based on these early Sumerian or Mesopotamian contact, which we need to explore. But often we underestimate these maritime connections. I am just showing some of the maps and trying to show how it is important. If you look at the Periplus and other texts, we get a lot of evidence for maritime interactions. And coming to this Tamil connections of Tamilagam, mainly in southern part of India, we get a lot of evidence for Tamil connection. For example, at the site of Bernike near Red Sea, we have evidence of the script which reads as Kotrapuman. Actually, Dr. Nagaswamy has reread it. Airavata Mahadevan's reading is Kotrapuman. Dr. Nagaswamy has reread it in a different version. We also have evidence of pepper from Bernike and also Indian part. Interestingly, we have this Kundrimani or Gunja seed or Abrus precarius. That is a seed used for weighing metal that is found at the site of Bernike, which definitely indicates Indian connection, the dissemination of knowledge related to weights and measure in the early period. This one reads Kanan and this is Chatan. These are two Brahmi inscriptions from Kusair, and this is Indian pottery. We have 7.5 kilo pepper from the site of Bernike, and this is the same Kotrapuman or other version from Bernike. Recently another Brahmi sherd was found at Khor Rori in Oman. This reads Nandai Kiran, probably the name was Kannandai, which is again a clan name in the Coimbatore, Kongu country, which occurs in the later inscription, also among the clan name of certain communities. This is Fukothon. Airavadam Mahadevan reads it Turovo, but we don't know its accurate reading. So therefore, we have these maritime connections leading to a lot of development and spread of science and technology in the early period. Coming to the medieval period, there are a lot of reference. I will not go into the detail. Karashima and Kenneth Hall and Shanmugam and others, Subrailu have worked on it. I will not go into the detail. We have evidence of Nagaram settlements coming up and also these the Seyayara Tuver and Manigramathar and their activities. We have Motupalli Abhaya Sasana, inscriptions of Ganapati Deva. They are talking about the trade activities and also Reddy King Anapothu Reddy's inscription. They all suggest how this science and technology development is intimately related to maritime and commercial activities. The next point I wanted to highlight is the Leiden copper plate and the role of why Rajendra invaded Southeast Asia. I will not go into the details. Briefly, when we look at the inscriptions from Nagapattinam, this is China Pagoda at Nagapattinam, We have these greater Leiden plates and which refers to the donation of land, Anaimangalam, to the Sudabadi Varma Vigara constructed by the Sri Vijaya king. And why this particular Vigara has to be constructed in Nagapattinam. And for this, if you look at the Chinese records, we can get a clear understanding. Here, under the Song dynasty, new commercial policies were devised, and gift trade and mainly other kinds of trade were encouraged by the Chinese. And Tansen Sen, who has looked at the Chinese records, he says that there are certain references in the Chinese records which say that the Srivijaya kings were misinforming the Chinese accountants who were writing the account, stating that the Cholas were subordinate to them. So there are a lot of records indicating that about this misinformation. Maybe this kind of misinformation would have forced Rajendra to invade Southeast Asia, apart from other factors. This is what I have argued in one of my papers. And there was Srivijaya was one of the important factors controlling the connectivity between India and China. And there are references in the Chinese records which mentioned about writing to Chola Empire in coarse paper. Chinese had a tradition of writing to a higher empire, to a fine paper, to a lower subordinates, to a coarse paper. These are recorded in the Chongxi records. This is what Tansen Sen has observed. On the basis of it, which I have raised a question, why the Srivijaya king chose Nagapattinam as a site for his Vigara? Why not other town? So here I have argued that this probably the Srivijaya king wanted to give an impression that the Cholas were subordinate. This could be one of the factors for him to construct a Vigara at Nagapattinam. This is what I have interpreted. So we also have in the first inscription there is only reference to Chudamani Virma Vigara, but if you look at the later inscription, we have reference to Rajaraja Perumpalli, Rajendra Soda Perumpalli. So this indicates some kind of new activities. We don't know who constructed these two Perumpallis. Maybe Srivijaya king later on constructed. We don't have very clear ideas, but the grant was restored in the smaller Leiden copper plates of Klothunga first. So this is one important information. In addition to that, we have several inscriptions of Tamil in Nakonsi Tamarat. I will not go into the detail. Borosu or Burma and Pagan. I will not, I'll take very limited time now to finish my presentation. So now if you look at the distribution of the inscriptions in the medieval time, we have higher concentration in this period, and then there is a sudden decline after 13th century. Mainly after 13th century, we have decline in the merchant guild inscription. What could be the factor? Probably people shifted to other forms of media other than inscription. They started using paper, or because of Islamic trade network, there was some change, which could be a possible explanation. We could argue these, that's what Karashima also has questioned, why there was a decline of merchant guild inscription after 13th century. This could be associated with the dissolvement of the old merchant guilds like Tisayayartha Ainutuvar and a new form of trade activities emerging. We have the ship's bell found in New Zealand, which is also an important evidence of this inscription reads Muhaideen Vakusu Udaya Kapal Mani. This is dated to 17th, sometime 16th, 17th or 18th century. So from these inscriptions, we get to understand the spread of the merchant guilds in the early times and how technology transfer took place. If you look at the inscription, we get to understand how these urban settlements emerged as industrial centers. Then next, I worked on the navigation aspect, looking into some of the inscriptions, and we have a lot of irrigation tanks in South India. And these tanks were operated through a sluice kind of structure. Rajan and several researchers have worked on that. But interestingly, some of the inscriptions, they refer to the use of boats or vodam in the tanks. We have reference from Tirupar inscription, which mentions about Vodanayanmar and desilting of the tank, and then we have another inscription from Ukkal, which also mentions about the Vodam or the small boats that were playing. Another important inscription, Uttaramerur also has this inscription. An important inscription is found at the village of Nangavaram near Tiruchirappalli. It gives in very detail about the donation made. Actually, this inscription try to understand on the basis of which what could be the size of the vodam used in this particular tank. So at one point it is not clear whether they meant 140 basket full of soil to be desilted in the whole day or each time. So I took it, so if we want to take at a time 140 basket full of soil, it will be too heavy. So I took it as 35 basket, and also the basket size is mentioned in the inscription. That is very interesting. I have not given the details here. So on the basis of which I did a research project at Indian National Science Academy on weights and volume measures. What we try to work on is to take these ancient seeds, Gunja seeds or Abrus precarius and Manyadi seeds, and then we try to check their weight, and also according to Kanakadikaram, 360 rice grains form one. Okay, I almost finished. One kind of small unit, Sevid, and the multiples are mentioned. So what we did was we experimented with this. We also used traditional paddy measurement from Tanjavur and then tried to estimate the weight. And later on, we did the same thing to the soil and then used the traditional basket and arrive at a volume on the basis of the reference in the inscription. And this is the volume that we calculated. This is based on Kanakadigaram reference, 360 nil equal to 1 sevidu. We counted 360 paddy grains. Of course, we cannot be very accurate because the kind of paddy that we use is very modern. But in ancient time, paddy size could vary. But what we did was try to basically estimate the volume, arrive at the calculation here. How much it weighs, and then we projected how much a Marakal would have, 946 cc cubic centimeter and 6 Marakal per basket. That is what it is mentioned in the inscription. Even when this inscription is very particular that you have to remove 140 baskets of 6 Marakal in a day. So that is very clear. So we calculated, then we arrived at this volume of 7,94,640 cc, on the basis of which we could, I just estimated what could be the size. It could be 9 feet by 2 feet into 1.5 feet size of volume in terms of perfect mathematical sense. Then on the basis of which we estimated the vodam could be of 15 feet in length, 2 feet in width and 2.5 in terms of depth. This is one estimation we did, and also I have done some more analysis of Bragadishwara temple ornaments. And if you look at that ornaments, the inscription gives in detail what is the weight of various pearls and various Bairam or diamond. That also I have worked on, and it has been already published. So this is the main point of my presentation. Thank you.